Today I want to talk about something that's been weighing on a lot of old school baseball minds. And if you've been around the game long enough, you've probably been feeling it a little bit too. Former MLB star Kenny Lofton recently spoke about how he feels the game is changing, and not necessarily for the better. He's calling out the obsession with home runs and how it's starting to overshadow some of the fundamental skills that made baseball great in the first place. And look, I've coached, played, or just been a fan of the game for a long time, and can't help but to notice the shift myself over the past 5 or 10 years. Everybody's talking about launch angle, exit velocity, and who can hit the 500-foot bomb. And yeah, those things are pretty awesome. They draw attention, sell tickets, and they make us highlight reels. But what are we losing in the process? Are we turning baseball into a one-dimensional show where if you're not hitting it out of the park, you're irrelevant? That's what Lofton's getting at, and frankly, he's not the only one feeling this way. He's saying that focusing so much on power and metrics is ruining the soul of baseball. And when a guy like Kenny Lofton, who made his mark being one of the most exciting, athletic, and well-rounded players of his era, says something like that, you gotta pay attention. So let's dig into this a little bit. What is Lofton really talking about? Is he onto something here? And more importantly, what does it mean for the way we're teaching the game to our kids and the next generation of players? So here's the deal. Kenny Lofton's been pretty outspoken about what he sees as the downfall of the game. And he's not holding back. According to him, the obsession with home runs and analytics is flat out ruining baseball. And you know what? He's kind of got a point. Back in Lofton's day, guys prided themselves on being well-rounded. Sure, there were power hitters, but there was a ton of respect for contact hitters, guys who could steal bases, move runners over, and make pitchers' lives miserable on the base pass. Lofton himself was one of those players who can completely change the game with his speed, glove, and the ability to put the ball in play. Now don't get me wrong, nobody's saying hitting home runs is bad. It's one of the most exciting parts of the game. But what Lofton's pointing out is that the balance is gone. It seems like the art of manufacturing runs, playing small ball, and doing the little things right has been pushed aside in favor of the long ball and nothing else. Everybody's swinging for the fences and nobody's learning how to actually play the game the way it's supposed to be played. And it's true, you've got kids and young players watching big leaguers, and you're not seeing guys hitting behind runners or laying down bunts when it makes sense. They're just trying to hit the ball as hard and as far as they can, because that's how guys get noticed now. And that's what gets you paid. Lofton said it himself. I don't hit home runs and I don't care about hitting home runs. I cared about doing whatever it took to help my team win. Now, I look around and see kids thinking the only way to make it to the big leagues is by hitting bombs. And when you hear that from a guy who played the game at an elite level, you have to ask yourself, are we teaching the right things to the next generation of players? And it's really hard to compare old school versus modern baseball anyway. Because here's the thing, baseball has always been a game of evolution. From the dead ball era hitters slapping singles to the steroid era tape measure home runs, the game has seen its fair share of changes. But this one feels different. It's not just about the way the guys are swinging the bat, it's about the entire mindset of the game. Back when Lofton was patrolling the outfield, teams value guys who can get on base, put pressure on defense, and make things happen on the base pass. We had leadoff hitters whose job was to be a nightmare for the pitcher, stealing bases, take the extra bag, turn singles into doubles, and forcing mistakes. And it was fun to watch. Remember Rickey Henderson? But in today's game, teams are looking at launch angle, exit velocity, and barrel rate as their holy trinity of offensive production. It's all about power. And strikeouts? Who gives a shit as long as you hit dingers along the way? Singles have taken a back seat. Stolen bases? Practically an endangered stat. And the kicker is this mindset is filtering all the way down to Little League, high school, and travel ball. Kids are training like they're prepping for the home run derby because that's what they see getting rewarded. And if their goal is to make it to the next level, of course, they're going to focus on what they think scouts and colleges want. And I get it. I'm not saying you shouldn't take advantage of modern metrics and technology. There's a place for it. But if all we're doing is trying to launch the ball out of the park, we're throwing away a lot of what makes baseball, well, baseball. Lofton's beef is that we're forgetting the other parts of the game. The chess match between the pitcher and the hitter. The strategy of a hit and run. The creativity of a perfectly timed steal. And from that perspective, when the game becomes all about power, you lose something special. Something that used to be the heart of what made baseball great. And the question is, does Lofton have a point here, or is this just a generational complaint about the game moving forward? I think it's a bit of both, but before we get to that, we have to ask, is this obsession with power really the best way to build young players for the future? Now let's zoom out a little bit and look at what this shift means for player development, especially for younger players trying to make it to the big leagues. It's not just a problem at the major league level. This obsession with home runs and power hitting is trickling all the way down to the grassroots level. For years, we've been seeing coaches and scouts rave about raw power, how far a kid can hit the ball, what his exit velocity is off the bat. But what's getting lost in the shuffle are the basic skills that used to be the foundation of baseball success. the fundamentals. When you've got young players more concerned about swing mechanics to boost their launch angles and exit velocities than learning how to properly field the ground ball or run the bases effectively, that's a huge problem. We've got coaches and parents pushing kids to just hit bombs, oftentimes without the right understanding of the basics that used to be the bread and butter of baseball. Things like plate discipline, defensive fundamentals, base running intelligence, and most importantly, the mental side of the game. Understanding how to read pitchers, how to adjust to different pitching styles, and how to battle through at-bats. But here's where it gets tricky. These kids that are focusing purely on hitting for power are often told to ignore things like small ball or moving runners over. And ultimately, that impacts the whole team. If kids are always swinging for the fences and not learning how to execute in a variety of situations, how prepared are they for when the big moments come in real games? The beauty of baseball isn't just in the power, it's in the strategy. It's knowing when to take a walk, knowing when to get a bunt down, knowing how to manage the game from the plate and from the dugout. Now, I don't want to be misunderstood here. Power is important. It is important. But is it the only thing? And should that be the driving force behind how we develop players today? Lofton would argue, and I would have to agree, that it's time to refocus on the total player. Create players who can do it all, not just hit homers, but also understand the game on a deeper level. If you've been in this game long enough, you know that baseball is more than just a stat sheet. It's about understanding the ebbs and flows of the game, how to be clutch, how to think 2 steps ahead of the opponent. It's not just about hitting 20 or 30 bombs a season. It's about helping your team win in whatever way is needed. Whether that's getting on base, banging a single to right field to drive in a run, or even playing solid defense. When we push kids to purely focus on hitting home runs, are we setting them up for success at the highest level? Or are we teaching them to chase a dream that doesn't always line up with what it takes to succeed in the big leagues? It's a big question and one worth thinking about. So when we step back and look at the big picture here, we have to ask, where's the game headed? Is the game we're seeing today really what we want to continue to build toward? Or are we chasing a model that can eventually make the game less interesting, less diverse, and ultimately less connected to the roots of baseball? Now, Kenny Lofton is raising some important points, and it's clear that the current trajectory of the game, hyper-focused on launch angles, exit velocity, and home runs, could be doing more harm than good. But then there's the question, is there a way to strike a balance? Can we find a middle ground between valuing traditional baseball skills and embracing the new age of metrics and power hitting? This may be an opportunity to take the best parts of both worlds. Think about it, there's no reason you can't teach kids how to hit the ball hard, but also emphasize the value of getting on base, making smart plays, and being versatile. That's the kind of player the big leagues are always going to want. A guy that can hit bombs, but also do the little things that win games. Imagine a player who can hit 20, 30 home runs a season, but also get 40-plus doubles, steal some bases, and provide gold glove defense. That's the kind of player you want to develop. A well-rounded player who could do everything and truly understands the game, not just swing mechanics. The beauty of baseball has always been about its ability to adapt. But that adaptation doesn't mean we always have to leave everything that made the game great from the past behind us. It's about integrating the new but not forgetting the old. We don't need to go back to the 1980s to make baseball enjoyable again. But we do need to recognize that the game will be better when we allow players to develop a diverse set of skills that go beyond just hitting for power. And this isn't just about Major League Baseball either. This is about the future of the sport at all levels, youth, high school, college, and even the minor leagues. If we continue to push this idea that baseball is only about hitting home runs, we're going to see fewer kids learning how to properly bunt, how to read the pitcher's pickoff move, or how to lay down the perfectly timed hit and run. These skills are what make the game as intricate and beautiful as it is. Losing them in favor of just trying to hit the ball to the park would be a tragedy for baseball, especially as we look to develop the next generation of stars. As a coach and a parent of a young player, this shift in focus means a lot. If you want your kid to make it to the highest level, it's about more than just power. Teach them the value of the game itself, the strategy, the IQ, the fundamentals. There's still a lot of room for power hitters in the game. But the truth is that major league teams want players who can hit for average, hit for power, play solid defense, and make smart decisions. The more we can push our young players to become well-rounded athletes, the better chance they'll have at making it. So to wrap it all up, at the end of the day, it's all about balance. It's a sport that thrives on strategy, skill, and mental toughness, not just numbers and metrics. Kenny Lofton's comments are a wake-up call. Just a reminder that we can't lose sight of the traditions that made baseball so great. But let's not dismiss the new advances either. It's about taking the best of both worlds and building players who are as complete as they can be. We don't need to choose one over the other. We can have power hitters, but we also need players who understand how to move runners, play solid defense, and think the game through. If we can teach the next generation of players to respect and master both sides of the game, we'll have a much stronger, more exciting sport for years to come. So baseball's soul doesn't have to be lost. It just needs a little refining. And it's up to us as parents, coaches, and players to ensure that the future of the game is built on a solid foundation, one that honors tradition, embraces innovation, and most importantly, plays the game the right way. So what do you think about all this? Are we headed in the right direction with the current state of baseball, or is Lofton's perspective more spot on than we might want to admit? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's get the conversation going. If you've made it this far, I truly do appreciate it. Please hit that like and subscribe button. I'm trying to grow this channel and keep this conversation going about baseball and just trying to grow the game. So if you're a parent, coach, player, or just like to talk about baseball, this is your spot. Thank you for watching. I will talk to you all later.